Hey everyone, it's been a couple of months since I did a video like this, and I'm tempted to say it'll be the last video in this little series about building my home studio. And I say that because after a couple of months, and this has been set up for a few months, I've just not got round to making the video, I finally set up my patch bay. So, what is a patch bay? Basically, you have this array of jacks, and they're all mirrored on the back, so you can basically put anything you want into the back, and it's mirrored on the front, so you can make your connections on the front. And it just allows you to be able to route things around your studio, the inputs and outputs or whatnot, without having to have loads of cables trailed everywhere or wearing out the jacks on your equipment. And the way it works is that this top row I've set to be all the outputs, and the bottom row is all the inputs. So to make a connection, you just take a patch cable like this. This is a jack, standard 1/4 inch, come out of an output and flow down into an input, and that's it. They say that the signal flows down from the top to the bottom like a waterfall, and I think that's a good analogy. So you can make connections by using jacks, but there's also a way to set internal connections, so you can make your own pre-routed internal connections, so you don't have to have jacks all the time, and you only use the jacks when you need to. And you'll see this little switch at the top. It says half norm, normaled, and open. And we've also got a parallel mode. I won't talk about that because not all patch bays have that, and I don't personally use it. So in the open mode, this works how you'd expect. So you have your output coming out of here, and you have another input, and there's no connection because there's nothing plugged in. They're just open. And in order to make a connection, you'll put a jack and connect it like so. Now, in a normal connection, even if there's nothing plugged in, the signal flows straight from A to B down like that, as if there was. And if you plug anything in the top, it breaks that connection. You can tap out your output from something, or if you plug anything into the bottom, it breaks the connection again, and you can plug anything you want into that B input. Now, half normaled is another useful thing because when nothing's plugged in, it will let the signal flow. But if you plug into A, it'll actually keep the signal flowing down, but then you have a split off version of it, so you can copy the signal effectively to send it somewhere else. Contrarily, if you plug into the B, it'll break the connection, so there's no signal flowing from the A to the B, and you can put your own input into that, or your own signal into that B input. So that's very, very useful. Now, I'm going to just pull this out for a second. Because I have it tucked under the desk at the moment, but I actually have a mixer set up here, which is another thing that's been set up since the last time I did a video like this. So, why would you want a patch bay? Well, first of all, this is a very, very simple reason why, is because I've got all these connections here, and on the patch bay itself, there are 48 cables going in and out. That's a lot of cables. Now, I don't really want to be keeping on plugging in and plugging out on these jacks. So to save wearing them out, I can just wear out the patch bay instead. And the patch bay is pretty darn solid. I don't think it's going to be wearing out anytime soon, but I know from experience some of these plastic key connections can get a bit temperamental over time. Also, it's a pain in the butt to have to reach around the back of things to plug them in every time, especially for something like this, where all the connections, or a lot of the connections, are actually on the back of this amp underneath my desk, and you have no idea how many times I've bashed my head trying to do that beforehand, so it's nice to not have to do that anymore. So what have I got connected to my patch bay? Well, I've got some tap-offs from the synth desk. I've got a tap-off from the bass rig. I also, of course, have all these connections from the mixer. I've got the tap-off from the organ rig, and that's actually coming out of the effects send from this, so I can have an amped tone from the orange amp, and I can take it out from the preamp of the orange amp and route it to an IR cab sim or something like that. I've also got the effects loop from the Marshall, the monitors, of course, my TR-08, which is also acting as my audio interface, so I can send stuff around, and then also the MPC's inputs and outputs, which are all on this big loom cable here, big fat loom cable. So that's kind of how I've got it set up. I've got it set so the signal is automatically routed to go straight from the mixer into my audio interface, which is automatically going from the output of the audio interface into the monitors. But if I wanted to interrupt that, say I wanted to take the MPC's main outputs and I didn't want to go through interface, I didn't want to go through the mixer or anything, so I'll just take the left and right, and I can go straight to the monitor. So I basically cut that bit out of my rig and I can just use the MPC, which is very nice. Now, you do have to worry a little bit and be careful about things like feedback loops, because that can happen if you're not careful with these the normal connections. But overall, I think I've figured a pretty decent flow, and it took a lot of planning to get this set up right. But it's all done now, and now I can just sit back and make some music. One other thing to note, I would say, is you might see these little boxes here. It's quite difficult to see, but basically what they are is for certain connections you might notice ground loops between two pieces of audio equipment. And to break them you can use these isolator boxes. I've got two of them running in stereo at the back, and that's really helped clean up some of the noise in the rig. And that's about it, which means that's about all I can talk about for the studio. So what am I doing next? Well, I've been working on some lost tracks with Jabun, so it's basically just going through some of my old unfinished works and putting them to good use. Also been practicing hard for Better Than the Book's debut live show, which is on the 5th of February in Brighton. And I'm going to put a link for tickets in the description if you want to come to see that. We're going to be playing with Look What Happened and Loved. It's a local pop punk and alt-rock band. And they are super great. I've been really looking forward to gigging them for a long time. And we'll be celebrating 10 years on from the 2 years on debut Better Than the Book full-length album. So it's going to be a grand night of pop punk, ska punk, and alt-rock. Right, I am going to bid you good night. And it's a wintry day just before Christmas, so time to pack up, relax, and get ready for the holidays. Hope you have a good one. I'll see you soon.